Yo, what's going on YouTube, and welcome to Goal Line Hockey. It's Kevin Forte, and today we are taking a look at the Florida Panthers as we continue our season preview videos. The Florida Panthers, after going to the Eastern Conference Final, being the Eastern Conference champions, going to the Stanley Cup Final, there's a lot of layover going into this season, a couple bumps and bruises that will affect the start of this season, and we'll see if those injuries and things like that will hamper them enough to maybe even miss the playoffs in 2024. We're going to go over that today. So the Florida Panthers, like I kind of said here at the top of the video, the Florida Panthers had an incredible run in 2023. They knocked off the President's Trophy winning Boston Bruins shockingly in the first round of the playoffs. I actually still have that Goal Line Hockey Live podcast here on the channel, so if you want to watch my live reaction to that, make sure to check that out, because the Florida Panthers were not supposed to go as far as they did, but they did anyway. And they're facing some adversity going into this season as well. And the thing with the Florida Panthers is they have some key injuries to start this season. And the two most notable being Aaron Ekblad and Brandon Montour. Both were placed on LTIR, and they are expected to miss the beginning of this coming season, which is obviously not good news for the Panthers, as they were huge pieces, vital pieces to the Florida Panthers on their cup run here in 2023. So with that said, what were some of the changes to the Florida Panthers? This is a little bit more positive. It is some of these additions include Evan Rodriguez, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and Niko Mikkola. Now, the one that definitely intrigues me the most here is, of course, Evan Rodriguez, not Oliver Ekman-Larsson. I really like Evan Rodriguez. I think he's a good fit here for the Florida Panthers. He reminds me a lot of another version of Carter Verhaeghe, which is kind of interesting. He's kind of a Swiss Army knife. I like saying that word here on the channel. I've said that plenty of times for players. It's a compliment. And, you know, if you guys remember Patrick Hornquist, it's not the same type of player in terms of being a little bit of a pain in the neck to play against, but Evan Rodriguez is that type of player where he could go, you wouldn't be surprised to see him on the third line, you wouldn't be surprised to see him on the top line the very next game. Evan Rodriguez is a dimensional player that can play throughout the lineup, and I think that's a huge benefit here. He's been a great player the last couple of seasons, and I think that's going to continue with the Florida Panthers. I think there's a good spot for him, and he's one of those guys that was really their more notable addition up front, but the other additions on the back end are definitely critical and worth mentioning. Niko Mikkola ended the season with the Rangers last year, spent a couple of years with the St. Louis Blues. He's a big defenseman. He brings size, a little bit of grit. I don't want to say the replacement to Radko Gudas, but is that type of defenseman. He's the shutdown defenseman. So he's replacing Gudas in that sense. But of course, he is no Radko Gudas, so don't get that mistaken. But he's an addition that's going to be that big defenseman. Definitely a presence on the ice, and you will see that as soon as he hits the ice for the Florida Panthers next season. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, we all know the story with OEL. He was with the Arizona Coyotes for many seasons, was the face of that franchise, goes to Vancouver. Things could not have gone any worse in Vancouver. He got bought out this summer by the Canucks, and now he comes into Florida looking for a fresh start. And I think there's a great place for him to do that, a team that is very veteran-led. He's going to be kind of just a piece in the making here in Florida. He's not the center core piece. And with a guy like Brandon Montour out of the lineup to start the season, I think Oliver Ekman-Larsson replaces him perfectly in that spot, at least to start the year. Now, with a full healthy roster, that could actually be a disadvantage to this team once everybody starts to come in. But I think Oliver Ekman-Larsson is going to be really critical for those first couple weeks of the season. So I really hope that he's ready to go, is well acclimated once he gets into Florida, because they're going to need him on his A game right off the bat. He might even be able to jump on the power play, one of the power play units, as soon as opening night. So they're going to need Oliver Ekman-Larsson at his best. Yes, he's 32 years old. He's a veteran. He's been around the block. I think the Florida Panthers need him to be his best to start the year. They're going to need him. Another guy I should mention here as well, some of their younger players. I look at a guy like Mackie Samoskevich. He was a first-round pick last year for the Florida Panthers, and he's a really good prospect. A lot of people are interested to see what he could be. I don't know if he's going to make the Florida Panthers lineup this season. They've got a lot of depth already there. But if there's a young guy to make the lineup for the Panthers, keep an eye out for Mackie Samoskevich. My breakout player, I have to do an honorable mention here, and that is Evan Rodriguez. I think he's coming in. I really like this move. I think that was a great move there by the Florida Panthers bringing him in. But I'm going to go with Anton Lundell. With what he did during the playoffs last season, this is, this is a huge credit to what this player is capable of. I see him as the next Patrice Bergeron. I think he is that good. And the idea of having Barkov and Lundell at some point on this team is just mind-blowing. The fact they could have both these centers, they are so good. Lundell is so good at winning board battles. He does not look like a 21-year-old center. He is very mature beyond his years, and just the way he plays on the ice, I've been really impressed every time I've seen Anton Lundell. I've gone out of my way to watch Panthers games to see Anton Lundell, and every time it's the same story. That is how good he is. So I'm really impressed with Anton Lundell, but like I said, I had to mention Evan Rodriguez as well. So that leads me to my prediction, because the Florida Panthers are in this weird spot in their division where I could see them being one of the teams in the Atlantic that made the playoffs last year that could miss it this season. And a huge part of that being because of those injuries with Montour and Ekblad to start the year. That could be the difference between them being a 90-point team and a 95-point team. And those 5 points in the beginning of the season could be the difference whether the Florida Panthers make the playoffs or not. With teams like Buffalo, Ottawa, Detroit getting better this season, it's going to be very competitive in the Atlantic, and those middling teams in the Atlantic, it's going to be really tough to make the playoffs. And I am concerned with the Florida Panthers. Their goaltending was good at the end of the season, but can that transfer over to the beginning of this year? And is there going to be that little bit of a hangover from going to the Cup final last year and only having a short amount of time during the offseason as a break? That could be a problem once we start this season. So, the Florida Panthers, I'm optimistic. I'm going to say 40 to 45 wins for this team, somewhere between 90 to 95 points. Shout out to Luis there. He is a big supporter here at Goal Line Hockey. He's my Panthers fan. I think the Panthers are going to be a middling team in the Atlantic, and that means maybe playoffs, maybe not playoffs. I haven't actually done the breakdown of each team in the division and where I think everybody's going to finish officially for playoffs. But I have my doubts about the Panthers, if I'm going to be honest. But as of today, if I had to pick them over the Buffalo Sabres or the Ottawa Senators, I'm going to go with the Florida Panthers making the playoffs. With that said, though, it is going to be really tight, and I would not bet money on whether I think the Panthers qualify or not for the playoffs in 2024. I think it's going to be down to the wire. It's going to be close once again for the Panthers, and they faced adversity last season. This is not anything new for them. The beginning of last season was a utter disaster for the Florida Panthers, but look what they ended up doing. They squeak into the playoffs, they knock off the Bruins, they go all the way to the Cup final, and they came up just short. But let me know what you guys think here in the comment section down below. What do you guys think of the Florida Panthers? Do you think they make the playoffs? Do you think they miss the playoffs in 2024? I think there's going to be a little bit of controversy, and this will be a little bit more polarizing. A lot of these videos, it seems like, yeah, that team will make the playoffs. Yeah, that team won't make the playoffs, but the Florida Panthers are kind of a blunder in my opinion. It's really hard to predict where I think they're going to go, but I want to know what you guys think here in the comments down below. Guys, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. That obviously helps us out. And make sure to check out the rest of our season preview videos we'll be doing here over the next couple of weeks, as we are now about halfway through the National Hockey League. So stay tuned for the rest of the videos, and make sure to catch up on the ones you haven't watched already. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.